I'm going to invite Bradley up here, Bradley Briscoe, to talk a little bit about what that is, what that means, and how to help someone navigate through that system.
Good morning, thank you. Unfortunately, Lieutenant DeRosa can be here with me today, so it'll be just me. I'm the last speaker for lunch too, so I promise I won't hold you over so you can eat. To explain kind of the whole jail service and all the things we provide, I'd be up here for 3 or 4 hours. So I'm going to just get cruising through these slides. And at the end, I'll talk more about the resources that we provide, especially for mental health and limited English proficiency. So bear with me here as I cruise through this. So let's talk about the Ada County Jail as a whole. It's the largest jail in the state. It's a 1,200-bed facility. With that being said, we're probably floating around 1,000 inmates every single day, which on the surface level you say, oh, well, there's 1,200 beds, there's only 1,000 inmates, they have 200 beds available every day. I wish that was the case, but that bed number includes all the vacant beds in medical that aren't being used because we've nursed people back to health, or the extra beds in our maximum security unit because we have 2-man cells, but there's some inmates that can't live with others, so sometimes we have like 1 inmate taking up a cell that's meant for 2 people. So those beds quickly evaporate, and so we are definitely experiencing a crowding in our jail, just kind of all around. We have several different units within our jail, and we'll kind of talk about that more as we go along. We've made several additions to our jail, the most recent being maximum security unit in 2014. Before that, it was health services in 2008, and then our medium custody unit in 2004. Currently, we staff the jail with about 157 deputies on a given week basis. Doesn't include the sergeants, lieutenants, captains, all that kind of stuff. So in the jail, we use these 4 pillars to train all of our staff members. So we already understand that the people in our facility have already experienced the worst day of their life. They're in jail, now they're experiencing this awkwardness of having to be confined in a space they don't want to be in. They can't do anything without permission. Resources can be hard to reach, and understanding the process of how to get to those resources in the jail can be very confusing, and it takes a lot of time, patience, be frustrating. So our staff know this about them, and we don't want to be the punishers, right? Our detention deputies aren't there to punish people. We train our detention deputies to be very respectful, helpful, provide guidance on what they need. And so we use these pillars for the safety of staff, security of our facility, the well-being of our inmates, and to meet or exceed our stakeholders' expectations. So I take great pride in how we train our staff and how they treat inmates in our custody. We'll talk about some misconceptions of jail and how people are treated. I'm very proud of the Ada County Jail and how we operate and do the things we do and why we do the things we do. So let's talk about these misconceptions. So jail staff controls who's arrested and when they're released. So it's super important to know that the jail staff have no control over who's in jail and how long they just stay there. That's all handled throughout the court process, and so once they get through that court process and a judge either says, hey, I'm releasing you, giving you a bond, they're able to bond out, that's what dictates whether or not they stay in jail. So detention deputies and all the staff members inside the jail can't necessarily say, I know when you're gonna get released here, I have this power to pull strings to get you out of jail. All inmates are housed together. So how many people are familiar with 60 Days In-ish? Or some other scary TV shows that depict jails as like these scary, dirty places where people get beat up all the time, right? It's not like that, I promise. We have specially trained deputies that evaluate every single person that come into custody. They in-person interview with them. They research their past history. Why are they in custody? Have they been in custody before? What's their behavior been like while they've been in custody? And then based on all of the evaluations they do, they get to dictate what housing they go to. So we're not gonna house an inmate that's extremely violent, beats up on people, with someone that's coming in for like a misdemeanor FTA, right? That's cooperative, just trying to get through the process, move on with their lives and get better. So we keep our inmates safe that way with specialized deputies that will make sure that whoever's being housed in whatever unit is supposed to be there. Inmates are treated poorly. So if you were to ask certain inmates who have been in the system for a while, you're gonna hear they hate me, they don't ever help me, all that kind of stuff. And we understand the frustrations they have. But again, our deputies are trained not to be punishers. We provide resources within the jail, 3 meals a day, bedding, whatever it takes, mental health services, medical services, all those things are available in the jail, and I'll talk a little bit more about those as we go along. Inmates are locked down all day. Absolutely not the case. So in the Ada County Jail, we use an incentive-style program of housing. So the better you are in our jail, the more privileges you get to earn throughout your stay. If you're gonna misbehave, you're gonna fight, you're gonna break rules, you'll be housed in more restricted housing units, obviously, and so that's where that conception comes from. And so if you were in our maximum security unit, right, where the most violent of our inmates live, they get about an hour out a day. But they still get an hour out a day out of their cell to do visits, go to rec, do those type of things. When they graduate to medium custody, let's say they've had a decent amount of behavior and they've been good, medium custody, they get that time extended to about 2.5 hours out a day. They get to do outdoor recreation in a larger rec yard. They get more commissary. And then from there, they go to our minimum custody units where it's an open dorm setting. It's not in a cell where they're confined all day. And it's just an open day room that's open throughout pretty much the entire day until bedtime and time to bunk up. They get outdoor recreation. They can do program classes. They can do a whole bunch of different things. So they're not locked down all day. We want to treat them like people. We want to help make them better. None of us benefit from making people worse coming into the jail. So our goal when people come into the jail is truly to get them set up for success for when they get out, that they hopefully don't come back. No assistance available to inmates while in custody. Absolutely not the case. Like I said, and we'll have more people talking about some of the resources we provide while people are in jail, but we provide programming classes, we provide mental health care, medical care, information on their court services, how to get in contact with public defender's office, whatever resources they need, we have in the jail. And we can try to help guide them on who to contact for certain questions, or if they need any help with getting resources within the facility, we have processes for those as well. All right, talking about some challenges of the jail. So obviously jail is very challenging, right? Picture yourself trying to live your life and do all the things that you need to do, but you're stuck inside your house all day, and you have to get permission to do certain things at certain times, right? So challenges for family members and some of you. A lot of the information for people has to be confidential because they are adults and we're not allowed to share that information, especially when it comes to medical stuff. So we get a lot of frustrated family members, like moms and dads that are concerned about their children, like, hey, I don't really know what's going on with them. I know they have these medical or mental health concerns and they want to get all this information on them, but unfortunately we are not allowed to share that information with them, and that can be kind of a difficult situation. So what we try to do is just ensure, again, that they're safe, secure, and we can provide like a basic update of that they're okay, but just know that we aren't allowed to share that information, so it can be kind of challenging for the families. We're talking about cultural influences, especially religious stuff. In the jail, we have to house a whole variety of different people, right, with different backgrounds, cultures, languages, and so it's an extreme challenge to allow certain religious practices or cultural practices inside the jail that would still present a safe environment, right? Because unfortunately, not all inmates are there to do good things and get creative with the stuff they get and make contraband, weapons, things like that. So we have to be very selective on the things that we allow inmates to have while in custody. And so if there's even just like religious items that they come in with, like a necklace, rings, things like that, we don't allow inmates to keep that kind of stuff on them, so any personal items. So we try to do the best that we can to accommodate those things by making our own versions of those or getting approval for, I would call it like a generic version of the things that they're used to having, but it's on a case-by-case basis. I'm talking about language. So like most people, we have some bilingual deputies on staff to help the translation of things if they're there, a lot of Spanish-speaking deputies. But we also have access to the same services the PSB does, the Police Services Bureau, so the language line, BPD's list of interpreters. We're also starting to explore a new agency that we haven't approved or started yet to start scheduling more in-person interpretation, because we know the effectiveness, especially when it comes to medical or court-related things. What we're finding out, especially with the language line, is there's no familiarity with the person they're talking with or information, especially related specific to Ada County. We start to get some misinformation even with our interpreters on what they're telling our clients. So, okay, going over the process. So again, talking about the jail as a whole could take me forever, so I'm going to keep cruising through this. So let's talk about booking. So once a person is officially arrested, brought into custody, the first area they're going to go into is going to be our booking area. Once they arrive in the booking, they're going to be taken into the custody of the detention deputies. They'll be going on that top left picture there. That's an intake area. So they will immediately be searched by a deputy. So that means the deputy's going hands-on. They're pat searching their clothes, emptying their pockets, removing all their personal jewelry items, and putting them on the desk over there. They're going to collect all the personal items they have, document what they came in with so that we know we give them all their stuff back when they leave. It gets all sealed in its own bag. That's You can't open it until they leave. And then they get asked a ton of questions. So they're already frustrated because they just got arrested. They're probably going to be, not real patient with everything, but we need to know all the information that we can about them while they stay there so we can help that continuity of care as well. So they're going to get a ton of questions right there in the intake about what their address is, where they live, what support systems they have locally, any medical information we need to know about them, mental health information, religious stuff. We ask them pretty much everything about them so that we can do our best while they're in custody to take care of those needs. After they're done with the intake process, they're going to go through our body scanner. So that can kind of be a little weird thing, especially if you're not familiar with the body scanner. It's another tool that we get to use, right? Because people get creative in terms of bringing contraband in the jail, and again, to provide a safe and secure place for everybody. Some inmates get real creative on how they get the contraband into the jail, and so again, our body scanner is just another tool for us to help preventing things like drugs and stuff like that coming into the jail. It can be a bit uncomfortable because people just think, we see this awkward image of them, but I can assure you it's just like at an airport where it scans through. We can look for specifically anomalies, what we call them, on the scan. And if we find one, we can ask certain questions and take certain practices after that to help hopefully prevent contraband coming in. It's not super radioactive though, so people get really concerned that they're gonna get radiation exposure. It's nothing like that. It's just like a simple X-ray, and that's it. After they're done with the body scanner, they'll go to the fingerprints and the booking photo section. So that's where everyone goes on our website to look at those awesome mug shots of people that are, smiling, crying, whatever it is. But just know that that's a process that has to happen. So there's a lot of people that come in. Obviously, they're going to be embarrassed about being there. They don't want their photo taken and stuff like that. But that's something we're required to do by law. So they're going to get their fingerprints taken. They're going to get their photo taken, get through that process. After that, they get screened by medical staff. So the Ada County Jail has a medical nurse at least on duty 24/7, and I'll talk about medical a bit more later on. So in booking, again, we'll go through that initial interview with the deputies and intake, getting the most basic information, and they're going to get a more in-depth medical interview after that. So we really want to know about any medications they're on, any mental health issues they have, medical issues they have, because again, that's going to only help us better take care of them while they're here. And then once they make it through that whole process and they're all done, good to go, they'll be in our booking lobby area where they can make free phone calls to family members, bondsmen, whoever they need to contact, let them know, hey, I'm safe, I'm here, or try to set up a bond to get out. I'll talk about bonds probably later on. And then once they're through the booking process, they'll go to housing. Oh, I skipped a few, please. Oh, wait. Go to housing from there. Just real quick on bonds. Some charges come in and they have a bond set already, so they can bond right at a booking. If not, they have to wait to go see a judge the next day where they'll set a bond for them. But yeah, we'll keep moving for time purposes. So that next court date. So anytime someone comes into custody, they don't bond out while they're in intake and they get housed in the jail, they'll automatically go to video arraignment the next business day. So unfortunately, if you're arrested late on a Friday night, you'll be there Saturday, Sunday before they get to see a judge and get a bond set and things like that, so that can happen as well. Video arraignment, though, is not to prove if they're guilty of a crime or go through the whole court process right there and then. It's just to say, hey, here's your rights while you go through this process. And so they'll have a public defender there to help represent them if they can't afford their own attorney. That can help explain what rights they have during the court process. And then the judge is going to go and explain what they've been charged with so they know what crimes they've been charged with, and they'll give a brief overview of kind of what the report details about why they've been arrested, and then just set a bond. But that's the only purpose for video arraignment. So a lot of people get spun up in there and say, hey, I'm not guilty, I didn't do this, this is actually what happened, but unfortunately that's not what that's for, and there's nothing they can do with that information. So with video court, they'll get a bond set and it'll either decrease, increase. The judge can also release them on their own recognizance, which just means, hey, I'm releasing you with the promise that you're going to come to your court dates. If not, I'll have to issue out a warrant and you'll be arrested again for an FTA. All right, talking about inmate housing. So we touched on classifications already. So we have a specialized team of deputies to make sure that who comes into jail, we know who they are, why they're there, what their history is like, what their behavior is like, and that way we can house them appropriately based on what that's going to look like. So we have a bunch of different types of housing units here on the slides there. Upper left is that maximum security unit. It's two-man beds or cells. They get 1 hour out a day, very restricted with commissary and other stuff, but they still have access to all the other resources in terms of medical care, mental health care, the things that they need to be successful during their stay. And then on the lower right-hand side is our medium custody unit, which is a 4-man cell unit. They come out in groups throughout the day, and again, they get about 2.5 hours out of the day. They get a little bit more commissary. They get to go to a bigger rec yard. And then on the lower left there is our dorm area. So that dorm area is our minimum custody unit. It's an open area, has about 92 beds in there, so it's a crowded area. In the Ada County Jail, though, we use a direct supervision model, so there's a deputy in the unit at all times. The purpose of that is to make sure that everyone's safe and secure, and when you don't have a deputy in the unit, inmates will take over, right? And it doesn't provide a safe or secure place for people to live. We want to make sure people are safe, so there's always a deputy in the unit with them. All right, let's talk about medical, because I know I got a lot of questions on this last year, so I'll try to do my best to answer them today. So our medical unit is awesome. It has a lot of beds, and we provide a lot of resources. So we have, again, full-time medical care, 24/7, at least with a nurse. Throughout the day, we have contracted nurse practitioners, PAs. We have a contract doctor that comes in at least once a week. We provide dental services once a week, and they can provide emergency fillings or they can pull teeth. We have full-time mental health staff that try to work and be on staff 24/7, but as always, we're all short-staffed, so they do the best they can. But they're there every day to help evaluate mental health needs. We have a contracted psychiatrist as well that comes in weekly to help with meds and other prescriptions like that. And the thing that's really awesome about our medical unit is we have specialized deputies that work in that unit by itself. So it's one of our only specialized units in the jail where deputies have to apply to work in this area. And based on how their inmate management skills are, their de-escalation skills are, their communication skills are, that's who we would select to work down there. Once they're selected to work as a medical deputy, they go to that CIT training, that 40-hour course, again, to get more training on recognizing mental health issues, medical issues, how to communicate with people that have mental health issues. And it's been super beneficial for us. In terms of like use of force and things like that have gone down drastically since we went specialized in that unit. Again, because the deputies all know the inmates down there, right? Typically the people that come to our medical unit are the same inmates because they suffer from the same illnesses. And they recognize the deputies that have been working down there already. And those deputies know those people better, and so then they're able to better communicate and address the needs of those inmates. Let's talk about inmate communication with jail and medical staff. So the jail, again, can be very confusing when you come in. You don't know how to ask for things or where to get certain resources. So we do everything electronically in the jail in terms of requests. So whether it's just simply for a clothing item or a special diet for food, or if I have a tooth that hurts, I want a filling, it's all done on a kiosk in their housing unit. They submit what's called the inmate request form, and a lot of the slang term you might hear is they submit a kite to ask for these services. Once the kite or the request is submitted, it'll be forwarded to the correct person based on how and which option they chose to submit it under, and then that person can effectively answer the request for them. And if it's a medical one, they can get sent down to the clinic, which we run daily, see a nurse, mental health clinician, whoever it is that they're requesting to see. It's important to know if they do submit a medical request as well, the deputies don't have access to read those, so just medical staff read those medical requests. But if there's something that we need to know as deputies about that inmate for medical response or mental health response, we definitely want to know that about them. So they'll share the very basic level information of, hey, this person's struggling with this, so if you see this, we need to call right away. When we're talking about mail-in commissary and phone calls, so we don't allow any in-person visits in the jail anymore. So if you are going to visit with them, it'll all be over video visit. The only in-person visits we do are with clergy members and attorneys. Commissary is available throughout the jail, so they don't have to eat just the jail food, which is not bad. I don't think it's that bad, but if you're to ask inmates, it's not the greatest. When putting in money on an inmate's account, just know the first $15 on their account gets put away for medical use while they're in the jail, and then anything over $15 they can spend on food, whatever they want to spend it on. So to get access to video visits, there's a specific website and a third-party vendor we use to do those, to set that up. So if you want more information about that, come find me after this. Once they're released from custody, they go back to booking. So the judge is released them, they serve their time, whatever, they complete their program. They fill out their release paperwork. We give them all their property back. They're provided copies of their next court dates. They can set up for text message reminders for those court dates if they struggle with that. We get them dressed back in the clothes they came with. If they were soiled when they came in, we do the service of washing those for them so they don't leave with soiled clothing. And then they're escorted out to our jail lobby. Okay, I know I just totally cruised through that, so there might be a few questions, but any questions?
So, got a couple things written down. Friday nights are the worst time to get arrested.
Yes, or
And-
holiday weekends, yes.
But my big question is, how much does a phone call cost? That's the question or the concern I get a lot of calls about from our constituents.
Yes, and it totally depends. So if it's a bondsman or an attorney or approved caller that provides some services, those can be free. If it's family members, those rates change depending on the third party, so we don't control the price for phone calls or video visits anymore. That's based on that company, so it can change. But all the information is on their website. And again, for more information, come find me and I'll get you that information on their website.
And if they have nobody on the outside to put money into their account, what happens if they need like medical assistance?
So for medical assistance, the copay is $5 in the jail, which is awesome, which I know you wish probably that you only had a $5 copay when you went to visit a doctor. If they don't have money on their account, we don't refuse services ever. So even if they don't have money and can't pay, we will see them every single time. For a script or a prescription of a 30-day supply of medications, another $5. Any request they submit to get seen is a separate $5 copay.
I'm having a hard time imagining how it would work for using interpreters in the jail, because it wouldn't be easy to have someone come in person, and then like if your deputies need language line, like do they pull out their own personal cell phone? Like, can you just explain like how that actually happens, or do they just try to use hand, gestures, or what?
Yeah, and we'll use a lot of the information when they come in, when they get arrested. If they need an interpreter right then and there, we'll annotate that on their profile. And so that way we know the next day too at video court, we do have an interpreter come in, or at least at the courthouse to help them through that part of the process. When it comes to medical stuff or just a request, we have phones in every single unit that the deputy can call the language line, or the list of interpreters that they have. It's the jail phone, so it's not like their own personal phone, and we'll allow them to use that as well. That's also why we're exploring another option where we have a scheduling system to this other agency that we can have face-to-face interpretation with, but working on that part of it.
And you guys have some bilingual deputies in the jail as well, correct?
Yes, yep, definitely have some bilingual deputies. Spanish is a popular one. We have Russian, Ukrainian, French, Swahili, just to name a few. And if they're on duty, I will absolutely use them over the language line. Any other questions?
When you guys have someone coming into booking, how are your deputies, I guess, being proactive about someone who might have fentanyl on them and protecting themselves, and also being aware of like potential overdoses, or someone going through active withdrawals? I guess, what's the
Absolutely.
process
Yeah,
for you guys and the clients?
Great question. So we have a nurse in booking 24/7 help identify medical issues. In terms of fentanyl or anything, if there's any concerns with that, we definitely have the right protective equipment for our deputies in there. And then in every unit in our jail, we have Narcan ready to go. Whether it gets smuggled in somehow or it's being brought in at intake, if we even think it's an overdose, whether or not it's fentanyl or not, we have Narcan ready to go and response bags in every single unit. Awesome. Any other questions? There's a lot to the jail, so if you want any more information, come find me, and we give tours as well. It's pretty fascinating.
Thank you, Bradley.